Okay, hello everyone, and thank you, and welcome to our March 2025 update. And thank you all for joining us today. Most of those who don't know me, my name is Peter Mellor, and I'm the software support analyst for SuperMate. And today we have our product design manager, Reese Hopper, who will be along to provide a demonstration on what's new in the world of SuperMate. So I'd now like to hand over to Reese to provide an update on the recent March release and for his demonstration on client payments and filters. Thank you, Reese.
Thanks, Peter. I shall just steal the screen. All right, welcome everyone. As Peter mentioned, I'm going to cover off the March 2025 release and then a couple of major features that we've brought out, which is client payments and filters. The March 2025 release, once again, it was quite a big one. We had 150 enhancements in total get released. Since our last webinar, the main 6 that I want to chat to you about relates to workflows, report suite generation, and query raising. So the first one, workflow milestones. You might remember back when I did the workflows webinar, I was showing off that we have this end of year tracking. And that when you do, and you can also have an end of year workflow set up. Well, with that end of year workflow, you can also set up milestones. So this end of year tracking is just purely our, it relates purely to the end of year section, and it will track how you progress through here. So this one's automatically changed to work in progress. When you've done the close, you can update it to whether you want to do the client signing or send it to auditor. Also, when you send it to auditor, that end of year status will update. As a firm, you can customize your own type of milestones. So if you have a different process and you set up a workflow that tracks that process, when you jump into the end of year tracking screen, you'll now see milestones, and you can see all the different stages of that milestone. So for example, I think I've seen ones where, people have broken down rather than it just being not started, work in progress, client signing, audit signing. They've broken down to more granular milestones as, not started, requested information, received information back from the client. Then it goes to work in progress, queries raised, team leader review. So milestones enables you to just further customize the way that your firm does its work during the year. The next one relates to workflows. It's a concept called workflow task comments, where as you're working through a workflow, as a workflow continues, multiple users do engage with that workflow, and it does require, or it's more beneficial where if someone is doing a task and they think, hey, I might put a note down for someone further downstream to get this note, read it, might help them out with their tasks. We've also seen it with review steps. If I navigate back to SuperMate, I go to Future Super Fund, and I open up the workflow demo one. I can select the triple dots, the action items, go to task comments, and you can see here that I've actually put a comment in. I think my user type is hiding myself as a user, but for general users, you'll see the initials there, the name up here, who left the task comment. And this is where you can kind of have a back and forth with people where, okay, I've completed this task, here's a bunch of review points. If the workflow continues to a step, okay, I've done the end of year, I've passed off to the reviewer. The reviewer says, oh no, there's some mistakes with the processing or the financials or the work papers that you produced. I want amendments. They can put their review points in, then save their tasks, their comments on the task, move the workflow along to send it back to the original person to fix the mistakes. And that person can jump in here and they can see their review points. And it's a great way to keep all the data in SuperMate and all the review points in SuperMate. And then once the original person has finished their processing, they can add their own notes to as comments. The third item I want to talk about, producing report suites based on a fund member or member account level. Prior to the March releases, you can only produce report suites based on a fund level, where we've received feedback from people saying, hey, I produce this report suite for a certain member account, so for a pension member, and also or from an individual. So where I've got member here, I often refer to it as client or individual level. And the benefit of being able to produce a report suite based on a fund member or member account really drives what reports and what information you're trying to convey back to the recipient. So if it's just like a general quarterly investment report, you'd probably just do that on the fund level and just send them fund level data. If you want to give an individual summary and only include minutes or member statements that relate that particular individual, you can do that. Or another item for a member account is, say, if you perform a compliance process, starting a pension, doing a lump sum, and you have multiple different minutes and reports that you stitch together. So say if you have a fund level cover letter written out, then you have pension commencement minutes that relate to purely that member account, so that pension account. And you also just want to include some member statements. You can create a report suite so that when you run that report suite, it's not going to produce the pension minutes for every single pension account that was commenced during that effective date. Similar with the member. So say if you want to give them a member summary, it will only include if those report types and those letters have member or individual level versions, it'll only include that. So you can provide, hey, this individual, here's a contribution and pension details and etc. So what I mean by this, jumping into SuperMate, when you generate a report suite, I'll just close that. So I can say, oh, I want to generate this for a fund or a member. So it'll actually produce this for all members, but each individual will get a set of reports. Or I could say, I actually only produce this report for Jack or member accounts. I can untick it and say, only run this for Jack's pension account. And where we found this is quite handy is if there's certain workflows set up. And so say if you have a pension commencement workflow, you can also set this up to run automatically, the report suite to run automatically for Jack. And that report suite gets generated automatically, and you can grab the report suite, send it out to Jack. Including client letters in report suite. So previously, when setting up report suites, in this screen is where you do add all the different letters, reports. Previously, we've limited the type of letters that you could include in here to be fund and member, account type letters. But now that we've decided to include client level letters, where we previously excluded that type of letter is more to do where individual might exist in multiple funds. We thought it could be a bit chaotic to be able to include client level details in a report suite because it grab data from the other fund. Whereas now we've realized that risk is quite minimal, and also if that individual does exist in multiple super funds on one site, then they probably already have that existing relationship with other people in that fund, so that data can be brought across if you like. Query templates can now include fund tokens. In a previous webinar, I chatted about the benefits of being able to raise queries through SuperMate as you're processing, and then sending those queries off to clients, and they receive an email or through the client portal, they can log in and look at those queries, respond, raise their own queries. We found that there are certain types of queries that people ask where it's the same format. And so we've added the ability to add query templates when you're raising a query. So for example, if I jump into a fund level screen and I want to raise a query, you can have templates, and the template, when I select that, it'll include, okay, here's the bank statements, and it's actually these ones. I'll show you the setup later, but these words are coming through based on letter tokens that I've put into the query template, and the sixth dot point on that list was the effective date for queries. So these templates were being returned based on the effective date. So you change the effective date. The tokens I've used here is period start and period end. So if I change the period end, it should have updated the template. Yeah, it'll update those letter tokens based on the effective date. Yeah, so update the financial year, it's updated the effective date, and it's grabbed data based on that effective date. So if there's certain tokens that return other details based on an effective date, it will pre-fill the query for you. And where you would enter those query tokens is under the queries page, query menu item. You have the template submenu. You can add your query templates here. I'll just edit this one, and you can see here, I've put a token in for fund bank account. Please provide fund bank account for period start and period end, and thanks. I could change that to effective date. So that when I updated the effective date, it'll change it from this date to the effective date. But yeah, this is generally where you enter the letter tokens. If you are looking for fund level tokens in the, and generally this is the way I locate them, is in the reports letter token screen. It's based on the entity. So the entity type is fund, and this is the token. And so to put the token in, it would just be as simple as, you know, Control C, putting the squiggly brackets, SE full colon, and putting that code in. So if I, just to show you what I mean, squiggly, this is what I mean by the squiggly brackets, SE full colon, and then put the token, letter token in. And so when you are raising queries through SuperMate using the templates, it should pre-fill a lot of the data for you and reduce the risk of manual entry errors, but also it also speeds up the process. That's the 6 highlights from the March 2025 release. That, as I mentioned, we did about 150 enhancements. I could take up the full hour just chatting about them, but a lot of them are quite intuitive, and you'll notice as you are processing your funds. Next feature, client payments. As an enterprise software, we've brought in workflows, we've brought in queries, we've brought in client view. Next month's webinar, I'm going to show how they all are connected together. But one of the items that we know that a lot of enterprise level businesses like to perform is client payments on their trustees or on advisors' behalf. And so we've brought out client payments. It does support Macquarie, DHgram, AMP bank accounts. It is set up so it will require multiple authorizers, and that's configurable. And you can save recipients for future use. And how this feature works is that I'll take you through the demo. I'll take you through all the different screens, but how it works is you basically put the someone will put the payments in, someone will come to the screen, review the payments, authorize them based on the number of authorizers you require, and then you can generate the file. And depending on whether it's a Macquarie, DHgram, or AMP bank account, will dictate the file format which you can provide to the relevant bank. If there are different banks that you want to support, if there's different banks you want to support, please use the feedback option in SuperMate to let us know. Okay, so to SuperMate. First thing I should point out that this under fund client payments is where you'll find that menu option. You'll probably, if you're looking at SuperMate right now while you're in this webinar, you probably can't see that menu item. And the reason behind that is we find that this is probably, it's not a feature. It's similar to bank verification. It's probably not a feature that everyone is going to use. So we didn't make this menu item available unless it's switched on for a site. Now to switch it on, if you jump into settings and you go to system default and type in client-payment, this is 2 system defaults that client payments refer to. The first one is enabled. So if I select edit, I've changed mine to yes so that I can see the menu item. Yours will be set to no by default. and then the number of users required to authorize payments. I've set mine to 2 because in my demo practice, I require 2 people to verify the payment details that have been entered. And I should point out the people who authorize those payments need to be different to the person who enters the payments. So if you do consider someone entering the payment details and then someone authorizing it as having 2 eyes on it, you can change that value to 1, and then you can have, as an authorization process, you can have a process of, okay, one person's put it in, and then one person authorizes it. Okay, so let's go to the client payment screen. This is the client payment screen for the Future Super Fund. You can jump in and go to all funds if you want to see all the payments relate to all funds. I'm just going to focus on the Future Super Fund. You can filter down to the different statuses if you'd like. We do have a show future payments option. So this one right now is only looking at payments where the payment date would be today or prior. So if I select show future payments, I can see this one where Joel has entered and the payment is not till 11th May. Where I see this feature used is, you get, if you're the mail house, you can get a rates notice, and the rates notice is not due for 6 weeks. You might want to put the payment in for 6 weeks' time, so it's not getting paid till just before the due date. Or you could put it in for now. I see it for, as Joel's put in here, the income tax payment, obviously not due till 11th of May. So you can put you can put a future date in. Adding a payment. So if I go select add, drop down, you can choose between an EFT payment. You can do a BPay payment. For the EFT payment, in the screen, you do search for the relevant bank account. It's going to tell you what the balance of the bank account is at this point. You can choose to attach documents. So if I want to attach a document, I can attach a document, and then I could I could view that document when I'm going to, if I'm authorizing it or if I'm editing the payment, there's actually a side panel where you can view the payment. So when they are reviewing the payment, they can actually just look at the source document. Transferring it to, you have the ability to save where it's going to go. So in the past, I've made a payment to Andrew. There's also the ATO, the ATO direct credit, SuperStream recipient amounts. If I add a new one, I do have the option to save that bank account for future use. So, if you have pension payments going to a particular person, or there's a common provider, you can save it so you don't have to enter the bank account details in every time. Reduces errors, speeds up the process. Enter the payment amount description. You can choose whether you pay now or later. So pay later is that future payment option, and then select save. I'm not going to save it straight away because I want to show off something else that's cool. So if you are using the workflows solution and you have a workflow that relates to creating a payment that could go through multiple people. So it goes to the client services manager to review the payment, or it can go to a compliance person to make sure that it's the payment is from won't cause compliance issues. The workflow could then go to a fund accountant to enter the payment details, and that would take them to this screen. So I'll continue this workflow, and I'll have a workflow open. So I'll just minimize that. I've got the little icon here showing me that the workflow, there's currently a workflow in process. If I go to add EFT payment or BPay, then that document that is attached to the workflow shows up automatically. That's once again going to speed up processing, where people, when they're going through a workflow, they're not having to, okay, I'm going to come to this screen, but I'm also going to have to track down the document so I can get the payment details out. If someone's commenced a workflow with that document, then they can just grab the payment details off the actual statement. So that's basically adding it. I should have actually added one so I could show you some other details. Not that one. Okay. If I've created one myself, so you can see I was the creator, I can edit or delete a payment. If I've created one and it was wrong, I can select edit, come back, change the details, or I could delete it. You can see here I was the creator, but it's already been authorized by Joel. Therefore, I lose the option. If someone's already authorized it, I lose the option to edit or delete it. Whereas if I was the one that did authorize it, I would have the ability to come here and delete. I'll show you that further as I review and authorize. So status shows which ones are authorized. I can jump into this one, select review and authorize. It'll bring up the source document if you've put one in. So while I'm reviewing it, I can actually check the BSB, the account details, check the balance, the amount, description, so I can compare that to the source document. I can see who created it. I could see who also authorized it. Based on what I can see, I can either reject or authorize it. Once it's rejected, that payment, if you want, you can delete the payment. There's also validations in there to make sure that, you know, when creating the payment and authorizing it, if it does check the amount that you enter in the payment amount is is less than how much cash is on hand in that bank account. Also, it will do a check where it will review the payments that have been made for that fund, any withdrawals. It will review amounts coming out of the bank account to make sure there's no double up. And I should point out that it's not just payments that have been created lately. It's also covers the scenario if the trustee has paid something out of the super funds account. So say if this $990 invoice was already paid by the trustee because they have access to the bank account too. If I went to process this transaction, as I'm selecting generate the payment, it will, saving the payment as I'm entering it, it would look through the bank accounts and go, has there been a withdrawal for $990? So it doesn't have to be a payment that's been generated through SuperMate. I'm going to select authorize on this. status goes green, we can see who's authorized it. At the end of the day, when you're ready to generate the bank file to send it off to the relevant providers, you can select generate bank files, and that will go off. It'll create the bank file, which can be located in the My Job screen. So you can see here it's currently queued. And once that's processed, it'll create the file that I can send off. So R109. Yep. We also have a completed payments tab. So you can see here, this is one that's been authorized. The payment file has been generated for it. I'll select view and I can see who authorized it, who created it, when it was completed. Oh, what else to tell you about the client payments? Yep. Oh yeah, the other thing is to set up a bank account for payments. How it knows which bank account or what bank file to use, as in Macquarie, AMP, or DDH Graham, is it uses the BSB of the account. I navigate to Future 9 and go to the bank account screen. When I select edit BSB, it identifies which bank it is. And then you have additional settings. The third-party authority type does need to be direct debit authority or general withdrawal authority to be able to make payments through the client payment screen. So if this is not set, you will not be able to select that account while creating the payment. Okay. The second feature I want to talk to you about is filters. Filters is a way that we can, in any global level screens, in any global level screen, if you want to refine the results, you can use filters to do that. You do have the ability to save these filters for future use, or if you want to just use it once off. And you can set the filters to private if you are using them for future use. And for the people on this webinar that are classic users or used to be classic users and now use the new SuperMate, lists are the lists that are in classic. That functionality is what we refer to as filters in the new SuperMate. And the difference between the implementation between classic and web is that we make it easier to set up and use as a once-off. And we make it easier just to maintain those types of filters. We found with when people were using lists in Classic, I jump into a site and there'd be, 100 static lists that provide hardly any value anymore because they're old lists, or I'd jump in and I'd see some lists where they would be dynamic lists, as in the list would update based on the criteria you set in the lists, but they were just lists that were set up for a one-time use and then just left in there. And so it created a lot of clutter on the site. This is a lot cleaner, a lot more user-friendly, a lot more intuitive to use. Jumping into SuperMate, if I navigate back to the end of year tracking screen, where I was showing off the milestones before in the work in process, the work in progress status, I do have the ability to, when I scroll up, that's where all my filters are going to be. I should be able to, if I have a filter saved, I can go all, and I can actually find my filters. And then underneath the filters will be the super funds. It gives me the ability to go, okay, well, all my funds, select search, and now I'm going to see all the different, all the funds that I'm related to. And so we have a lot of we have a few system filters in there. But we also give you the ability to set up your own filters. All my funds, how that one works is if you're either the owner or have a relationship under fund details, if you have a relationship with that fund, these funds will appear on that filter. All active funds will be all the active funds. So if you have a screen where it does show inactive funds, you can filter it to active just to focus on active funds. Pensions, so I believe this is probably one that I've actually set up myself where I can search and focus on pension funds. If I want to create a filter, I would just scroll to the top, select add filters. You do have a conditions, which is match all or match any. Difference between match all is I could say include in the criteria, I could say include only active funds and also pension funds equals yes. And so if it's match all, both those criteria have to be met. It has to be an active fund and it has to be a pension fund. Whereas match any, where that could probably be used is if I go, I want the owner to be equal to Alana, or the owner is equal to Brendan. So a way to look at it is this: if it's match all, it has to be this and this. Match any is it could be this or this. You have the ability to save the filter for future use. This is an improvement on Classic where if I just want to use this list for this one search and now I'm never going to use it again, or it's a low usage, I don't want this list to clog up my fund searching and where all my filters sit, I don't tick save filter for future use. If I do want to keep using it, I can save it, I can name that filter, and then I could decide whether this filter is only for me or for all users. So as a user, I could create, if it's available only to me, I could create 100 filters if that's the kind of person I am. Which I probably am. I probably do like to have a lot of different filters. If I make it only available only to me, then that means a different user on the same site could log in and not see all the different lists. If there is a list that I want someone else to look at or use, or I think this is a helpful filter, I can make this filter available to all users. I'll just cancel on that. Also, when you do open up when you do have a filter on a page, you can select view filter and then modify that filter. I can delete the filter if I want. If there's a filter that does already exist, but I want to modify it a bit and not impact the current filter, I can select copy, and it will actually just copy the conditions and enables me to add more conditions and change the name and decide whether it's available just to me or to other people. Also, whether I want to save that as a copy. So as I mentioned, filtering, it's quite handy. I've seen it where people have access to multiple domains and they just want to search on funds for a certain people or a certain domain or based on a certain CSM. So I could go CSM equals set filter, and then I could search based on that filter. It's going to bring up the two funds where that person is the CSM or the customer service manager. I should point out that this filtering should be on any screen where there is a fund drop-down search. So I was showing off the end of year. However, if I jump into SuperStream, I look at filter at the fund, and there will be filters. So quite handy, bit of functionality, great way to cut down data. So yeah, that's my part of the SuperMate demo. I've covered off the 6 items that were in this release, 6 major items that have been released recently. We've had 150 over the last month. Covered off client payments to help you create a process where you have a payment file produced and an authorization process behind it, and filtering so you can cut down data. I'll pass it back to Peter now.
Thanks for that, Reese. So there's some pretty intense and in-depth stuff that you've showcased there. So that looks really cool. So, and whilst we're here, just wanted to remind you that there is a help portal available in SuperMate that's able to be accessed by clicking the question mark up in the top right hand of your screen and then selecting the help portal to find answers to frequently asked questions, or even just to explore the capabilities in web. So Reese has provided an update on the March release, as well as a demonstration on filters, or lists as they used to be known as, and client payment functionality in SuperMate. For those that have been coming to these sessions, they will have seen a significant amount of development over the past 12 months, with plenty more still on our roadmap to deliver. You'll be able to access Macquarie Bank data feeds, broker data feeds, registry reconciliations with computer shared, linked market services and boardroom, Data Hero to read bank statements and create bank transactions from them, property worksheets and standard letter templates, which all reduce the manual intervention and hence the time you need to provide outstanding service to your clients. And all this just for $11 per fund per month plus GST. Not only that, but for an additional $4.75 a month, you can get all of this as well as data feeds from over 200 other banks and financial services institutions. In addition, once you subscribe to SuperMate, you become a part of the Super Concepts family, and as such, have access to our SMSF education services provided by Craig Stone, who has been a presenter in previous webinars. So with that concludes our main section. So we come to the question section of this webinar. So now it's over to you. Is there anything that you would like clarification on what we've discussed today? Don't forget to click in the Q&A at the top of the Teams to view your questions. We have had a few come through in the chat. Just access that. So looking at that. So the recordings, yes, the recording will be available. So once we put this together, usually it comes through tomorrow. So it'll hit your email address for anyone who has registered. You don't actually have to have attended the meeting. So that recording will come through.
Yeah, I'll probably point out, Peter, that we also upload all the prior webinars to our YouTube channel. So if you want to see any prior webinars, jump onto our YouTube channel.
And they're all stored there. So this is probably more for you, Reese. Is the payment file directly lodged with the institution, or do you then upload it to, for example, like a Macquarie via the advisor login?
Currently, it is the file is brought out of the My Job section, and you do need to provide it to the relevant institute. We will take that on board. That's a pretty good idea. But when we implement that, it'll probably be optional whether it gets sent automatically or not, because I find that from a user perspective, people like to control when it comes to client payments and stuff. They probably would prefer to download a file, look at it, and then send it off themselves. But we can add that into the backlog to provide an option to automatically send it.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I agree with you. I think people tend to like to have the control over when authorities are sent. Okay. Just as a carry on for that, do we have a template for those authorities?
The template for is this question in relation to the template for the client payments that we send to the bank?
That's why I read it, yeah.
Yeah, we don't have that template as like an example template in the system. But once the file is generated, you'd be able to see what the template looks like.
Okay. And do we have any questions through the Q&A coming through?
Yeah, we do have one relating to workflows. So there's a question there. It says, how do we set up workflow milestones that we've customized for our site to mirror Classic? So if you are a Classic user and you have milestones already set up, they will flow through automatically to web. So in that end of year tracking screen, you'll see the milestones that you already set up in Classic. You'll see them there. And we're also working on expanding where those milestones are seen and how you cut that data. So from on the site overview, what we're going to do is allow, instead of showing the fund status, show the milestones. And we are in the process of creating a screen where you can cut data. And one of those options will be able to, cut workflows based on milestones. One thing I should point out is that the release that we did exposed the end of year milestones. SuperMate does have the ability to create milestones for any process. So if you have a take on workflow and you have a set of milestones you want to track, or a new fund, you can actually create a set of milestones for any process. If you have like a monthly rec workflow, you can set up milestones for monthly recs or client payments, or just a process. If you build a workflow around sending out authorities, you can set up a workflow milestone to track basically any workflow or any process.
Okay, it's just to give you more overview over each process that you have.
Yeah, that's correct. From a management point of view, you'll want to see where all the different workflows are, or where the funds are up to in those workflows.
Yeah. Very good. The last question was, can we book a full demonstration? Absolutely. The best way to do that would be to send an email to success@supermate.com.au. Then the client success manager can get in contact with you to organise a demonstration. So that's the way to do that. Do we have any other questions at the moment? No. All right. In which case, we'll leave that for the day. Thank you all once again for joining, and thanks, Reese, for your demonstration. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Peter, for having me.
Always welcome. And don't forget, if you're ever interested or would like a demonstration that is more specific to the way your business operates, please get in contact. Thank you very much.